So the first area to tackle was the most obvious, and that being the back of the saw, because as you can see, this plate here has some huge gaps in it. So much air leakage is happening with this gap that the suction inside the saw from that 90mm pipe I have, it's just not working. So my first instinct was to try and patch up all these gaps with small pieces of board and try and fit those pieces around the mechanism moving. And I thought to myself, best and easiest way to do this was just to build a box around this whole area and seal everything in, motor and all. That way I don't have to worry about trying to patch tiny little holes. So what I did was I took a few measurements from the back of the saw, came up with this sort of shape for the back panel. Once that back panel is in place, the idea is to build out from it, but the back panel is the start of the whole box. So then I just transferred that to a cardboard template. That way I could just make sure I fine tune everything before I actually cut it out. So that's basically what I've come up with. And at first I was just going to leave the box square, but then I thought, well, this whole area in the corner, that's just going to be negative space. It's wasted space. So I'm actually going to cut the curve on the box. The way I got that curve was, as you can see here, I just strapped the pencil to the mechanism and operated the mechanism and traced out that curve. I'm pretty happy with the final dimensions, but just to be sure, I'm going to make the bottom dimension and the side dimension slightly deeper and wider. The way I'm going to support that curved piece is just by putting some small square strips of timber, and if you can imagine, they're sticking straight out from the back plate, and I'll fix the curved piece onto those. So I need a little bit of clearance for those as well. So I just extended that arc that I had there with the aid of that piece of timber as a spacer, just to add some extra dimension, cut it out with the knife. Then I traced it onto this board, which was going to be the backing board. I added the extra width and depth, extended the curve around, then it was just a matter of cutting this out. I then removed the back panel from the saw and gave my timber panel a test fit. Then I used that same panel from the saw to mark out the mounting holes and just drilled them out. I had to add 15mm spacers to that backing plate because the table legs are tapered outwards, so I needed the 15mm spacer so that this board would sit flat against the back of the saw. To make the timbers that were going to support the curved section, I just cut down some standard 42 by 19mm pine. First cut it to length, and then by using the width of that board to set my table saw, I just ripped the pieces lengthways to make them square. And then it was a matter of just marking them out onto that backing plate. With those marked out, I could then drill a pilot hole in the centre of them and later transfer that pilot hole into the ends of these timber braces. And then once that pilot hole had been drilled, it made it a lot easier to screw the screw in without splitting that piece of timber. Then it was just a matter of fixing all of the braces in place. Once that section of the box had been made, then it was time to cut out the cover. The cover was just a copy of the back panel, and then I fixed the cover in place. Now that I had the main part of the enclosure all framed out and rigid, I could then start putting on that curved piece. Now I used 3mm MDF and just cut it to width. I've left it a bit long here, just started at one end, got it clamped down, and I'm screwing it to each of those battens. At this point in time, none of the structure is actually glued together.
I wanted to get most of it assembled in a dry fit so that I could put it on the back of the saw and just do a final check of alignment, make sure there's no obstruction to the motor moving, and yeah, once I was happy with that, then yeah, I went ahead and glued it all together. So the first panel to be glued on was this end panel, just using 3mm masonite, which I recycled from the skin of an old internal door. Next, I started gluing the curved panel in place. You'll notice here that the 3mm MDF has now been trimmed to length. Once I had all the screws in place and I was happy with the fit, I yeah, trimmed it to length. I did half the panel at a time, so glued up this bottom half, and then once that glue had set, I did the top half. The reason for that was I just wanted to make it easier to realign all the screw holes. I had to make some cutouts in the top panel of the enclosure just to accommodate the rear mounting bracket. So as you can see there, I've measured it all out and just used my cardboard template to basically confirm my measurements, and then just cut that out with my multi-tool.
Okay, so I've mounted the enclosure back onto the saw for its last test fit, just to check those cutouts I did at the top to accommodate that rear mounting bracket, and I've got to say it fits like a glove. As you can see there, the front panel is removed. The front panel was always going to be removable, so it wasn't glued in place. The last issue to tackle with this enclosure is that when the motor sits at 45 degrees, the fan cover sits quite high. It's actually sitting higher than the top of the box, so just need to make a cutout. I've marked it there, that's the start of the cutout. It'll probably be just slightly bigger than that. Once we've got the final size of that cutout, we'll just make a cover for it on the outside so it's still sealed up.
Once I had the size of that cutout just right, I made this very simple shallow box to cover it up, and just glued and screwed it in place. Then at this point in time, the box was practically finished, and all that was left to do was to give it a coat of paint. The other improvements I made to the saw were filling in the gap between the underside of the tabletop and the cabinet. If you can see there, the gap is about 30mm, and I couldn't find any sort of weather seal or weather strip that was that size. So what I did was I got some of this stuff here. It was the thickest I could find at 19mm, and I just doubled it up. It has adhesive on one side, so I just used that adhesive to stick the two halves together. And yeah, when it's pressed into the gap, there's enough compression there for it to be a tight friction fit. So I've done that all the way around the cabinet on the underside of the table. For the bottom panel of the saw that basically encloses the bottom of the cabinet where the dust outlet is, I just used some weather strip material all around the edge of that to seal that up as well. And for the front slot where the height adjustment handle moves across from 0 to 45 degrees, I just come up with this super simple idea. I stole one of my daughter's magnetic L plates. It's okay though, she doesn't watch the channel. And yeah, cut it in half and put two 30mm semicircles on each end, and yeah, so simple, and it works brilliantly. It was better than trying to put in some sort of weather strip in that area. The completed dust enclosure is now fitted onto the saw. There's really no more to do with that now. The saw is also sitting in what I think is its final spot. Dust extraction is reconnected and it's all running now, and I've got to say the difference is just remarkable. What I had before I did the improvements compared to what it's like now is it's almost as though I didn't have any dust extraction connected. It may be hard to demonstrate the difference between before and after because I didn't get any footage of this how it was before though, but to lift that insert plate out of my saw is quite easy. I can simply just lift that with my fingers, no problem. And it wasn't much different to that with the old dust extraction. I could still do that, no problem. But if I turn the new dust extraction on, with that running now, there's no way I can pull that out. That is sucking down to the table so hard, I can't pull that out. The only way to get it up is to actually use a screwdriver. And I don't know if you can hear that sound, but you can feel it sucking my hand down to the table. So that's really good.